Hey mates, welcome to the Loose Carry Podcast. I'm your host, Phoenix Trinidad, and if you are new here, this is Zero Tackle's weekly NRL podcast where we talk about all things rugby league. And on this week, we have Chad Townsend, Jamie Soward, and Lee Addison, an absolutely stacked lineup. We're talking about the Bulldogs. They dropped a game to the Roosters, who are absolutely charging into finals. Payne Haas confirms he'll be playing for Samoa, and should the Titans be doing everything they can to keep Tino at the Gold Coast? Absolutely. It's a massive episode. Let's get straight into it. Alrighty, so some talent on the show this week. Let's start with Lee Addison, Rugby League coach. You had a week off, mate. How'd you like it?
It was better than being with you blokes. I think we might be over the salary cap this week.
Just slightly. And second week in a row, Sowie, how are you, mate? How's the move going?
Move's going well as it can be, but I'm just excited to have someone with a little bit more brains on this week. I've got a halves partner.
A little bit more hair as well.
Yeah, just I'm going all right at the moment, mate. Once you retire, it happens pretty quickly, so I'm sure you'll enjoy that, but very happy to have Chad on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said, how are you, Chad? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Phoenix. I'm excited. Looking forward to getting a front row seat to Sowie and Lee today. I've heard there's a bit of banter going back and forth. I'm looking forward to jumping in. Might have to separate the two, but let's go. Big weekend of footy, and it should be a bit of fun.
You've always been my favourite halfback, Chad. Always.
All right, let's get straight into it then. All right, so almost a grand final preview, I reckon, Sowie. Panthers Storm on the Thursday night. So you were at this game. How'd you find it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a grand final preview. I think these two teams will play each other again, potentially in a prelim. It's hard when you play these elite teams so well or so often. In the last 5 years, these teams have sort of know each other's style, so you don't really aesthetically get a good look at some of the other games that we've probably seen on the weekend. But I actually thought it was a really good game. I thought that the turning point was probably the Blaze Talangi pass, where they sort of lost momentum there, Penrith, and really put themselves on the back foot. But, yeah, when you play these elite games, Chad, the top teams, they sort of know each other, what they're going to get, and it comes down to moments. And that was one of the moments for me that sort of swung it in the Melbourne Storm's favour. Huge win on the road.
Yeah, I agree, Sally. I think the completion rates of this team, especially, I mean, the Panthers had one error in the first half and the Storm had one error in the second half. So the Panthers played field position. That's what they do. They suffocate teams, and more often than not, they're able to score tries. But when they play the good teams like Melbourne are able to withstand with their goal line defence. So, look, I thought this was a high-quality team, and obviously it's finished with some controversy at the end. But you know, to me, this is a preview of what's going to come September time.
I think in terms of the attrition of the game, I saw a really interesting stat towards the end of it. Melbourne had only made one line break with 12 minutes to go, and Penrith had made 5. I think Melbourne just stayed with Penrith for so long. You had to mention it, Chad. The controversy, unfortunately, the Harry Grant Swan Lake dive will probably what we remember for that game. Unfortunately,
yeah. I mean, the Golden Point was probably pretty good too, but yeah. All right. Yeah. So pretty great game there. So moving now to the Warriors and the Dragons. Chad, I'll throw to you for this one. Did you get a chance to look at that one? My Warriors survived. They probably got away with one there. The Dragons have been pretty good. They're probably going to be the best team to not make finals in recent memory. So what did you take from that game?
Yeah, look, if I'm a Dragons fan, I'm actually quite happy with their performance on the weekend. I thought they obviously faced a fair bit of adversity with the HIAs. Obviously, the 2 at the one time. Then Hame Seli comes on. He gets another one. So 3 HIAs, 3 guys off the bench. Sloan gets activated from the 18th man. I mean, it would have been nice to probably have a middle forward at that 18th man position, but that wasn't the case. But like I said, I'm optimistic about the Dragons and their future with their young core and the guys they've developed so far this season. I thought the Warriors were a little bit scrappy. They'll probably just be happy with the win. Obviously coming in, some controversial stances at the back end of the game with that try and that lead runner. But Sowie, as a Dragons man, what's your take on the Dragons' future? Are you optimistic about, their playing squad with some of their youngsters?
Yeah, I think you adopt the style of your coach as a playing group, and we've seen that through Shane Flanagan's coaching this year, that they've become really, really gritty and hard to beat, which is, what you need to do when you become a good side is you need to get some foundations down there, and they've certainly built that. Yes, they've lost some close games. That'll be the story of their season, but I thought the weekend really typified what Shane Flanagan's building. They were really gritty, they were resilient, and some would argue they probably deserve to win the game, based off that call. I think the one thing that we're getting frustrated with, you spoke about Thursday night, the Harry Grant situation. Now we're just not sure about the obstruction rule because we saw that with Parramatta and North Queensland. I don't know if he'd been a bigger name, but if it was Clint Gutherson that may have got bumped over, potentially that sways it in the call. I don't think the veteran rookie calls are the same, as we all know, but yeah, it was a tough loss for the Dragons, but they got plenty to be cheering about heading into 2026. But they will need to get better.
On your wars, Phoenix, I think they're starting to look a little bit ropey. I think the injuries have caught up with them. They seem to be running out of a little steam. They celebrated that win the other day quite as if they'd won a big finals match, I think. The Dragons targeted their right edge too, so Pompey in defence was pretty average, but they returned in kind. So I think there's some weaknesses now that the opposition have found, and I think when the final ladder eventually settles, I think the Warriors will be definitely in that bottom half of the top 8, won't they?
Yeah, I think the expectations have lowered a fair bit just with all the injuries, but they were quite. I found them to be a bit undisciplined in that game as well, which is a bit worrying. But so not looking great. They'll scrape into finals, and I don't think they'll do a lot, to be honest. But yeah. All right, Chad, let's move on to your boys. The Roosters got over the Doggies. Just massive win. Tupou, massive hat-trick. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought it was ultra impressive. I think this, as a collective, probably our best performance of the season from the boys. Had a really good week of training, a really good game plan, obviously, with the Bulldogs. They kick early a lot, the Dogs. The boys spent a lot of week on, training for that. And then, obviously, Daniel Tupou as well. Isn't he just such an aerial threat? Obviously, 2 of his 3 tries come from the air. Sam Walker's in a rich vein of form with his try assists. Teddy's putting up numbers. Like he's just dominating week in, week out. It's ultra impressive for someone, to still be doing that at a high level. But I thought, as a team, physically they just dominated the Dogs, and we probably haven't seen that a Dogs team get dominated physically like that as much as they did all season. So the Dogs, look, there's no doubt some of these big decisions that the club and the staff have made are having an effect on them because they're not playing as well as they were at the start of the season.
Definitely.
Yeah, for me, there's 2 things about the Roosters at the moment. Firstly, whenever one of their wingers scores a try, Nick Davis just jumps up and he runs to Mitchell Orbison and asks for a pay rise because he's the kicking coach and catching coach there. The other part of it is that the Roosters, for all their points attack-wise and their energy attack-wise, it's been their defence the last 3 weeks. They've knuckled down, they've scrambled better, they've been more disciplined in terms of their edge defence and turning teams away. And when you are becoming one of those good sides and your defence you can lean back on a little bit, it releases the shackles a little bit with attack and you can sort of free up a little bit. And, they've got the perfect player for that in Sam Walker. I think James Tedesco right now is probably the best player in the competition in terms of the way he's on the ball. So, yes, the Roosters, high-powered, high-octane offence, but I think it's been their defence the last 3 weeks. It's been really gritty, which has allowed them to be able to build their attack.
On the other side of the coin is the Bulldogs, who have gone from being a really consistent side to an inconsistent side. The last 4 weeks have seen 2 of their better performances and 2 of their worst performances. And the way this is panning out for the Dogs now, if they get 3rd or 4th, they could play away from home in either 1 playoff game or 2 playoff games, and that's huge considering the crowd that they get at home as well. So definitely concerns, and I mean we've talked about the Lockie Galvin thing and the Reid Marnie thing ad nauseum on here, so I'm not going to bring that up again. But definitely in the case of the Dogs, there's been some kind of change halfway through the year, whether it's their style of football, whether it's their personnel choices at certain times. It will all come out in the wash.
I mean, we can only speculate on it, but from the outside looking in, what can you put it down to anything in particular, Lee, or is it just
I look, again, speculation. I don't think any of us doubt that somebody like Lockie Galvin, and unfortunately he's been the face of this, he makes any football side better. The problem is he came midway through the year, and much of the Bulldogs culture and the way they played football, a lot of it about one percenters, kick chase, inside slide, etc., was obviously built in pre-season and the previous pre-season, and then to parachute somebody in that obviously takes somebody else's place, it risks putting some noses out of joint. Whether it has put noses out of joint or not, we'll never know, possibly, but it just shows you that you've got to be very careful of tinkering with a side that's going so well. And the key thing is they've been a very consistent side that's now become an inconsistent side, and that has to be a concern.
Yeah, for me, it's not the attack. Chad will tell you the attack evolves throughout the year, and you have flat patches, right? But we're talking about the Warriors and Bulldogs that have been in the top 4 all year. It can be as simple as you just compromising your effort on defence. You know, the Roosters all year have been up and down. They've let in big scores. They let in 50 to start the year, but they've switched their focus from attack to defence. I think that's the Bulldogs' problem. You know, the Warriors, for all the injuries, every team gets injuries, but the one thing that you need to be consistent with is your defence. And the Bulldogs were the best defensive team in the competition, but they've had some blowouts this year, and that's when they've compromised their identity with their defence. I'm not stressed about the attack. I think the attack just happens off the back of your defence. And when it comes this end of the year, Chad, you know better than most, like, defence is what's going to win you big games or keep you in games. We saw Melbourne the other night. That kept them in the game, and then they get an opportunity to win it at the death.
100%. The best teams at the end of the season are the best defensive teams. I mean, you know, we remember the Bulldogs had back-to-back weeks with clean sheets. You know what I mean? It is not a Dogs team at the moment. It doesn't look like they're going to have a clean sheet. Their defense is not where it needs to be. And, you know, you're right about, you know, the Roosters. I know personally defense has been one of the biggest focuses, and that's all the boys have worked on in the past month has been defense. You hear it from all of them in press conferences, in their interviews. So the Dogs, they need to pick up their defense.
Yeah, interesting. So does that come down, like, now that we're sort of towards the end of the season, you'll probably know this better than me, Chad, how does the training load affect that? Like, I've heard the word training load so many times this week. Like, could that potentially be affecting the doggies there?
Yeah, look, what happens when you lose is we're searching for answers. Everyone, their club, coaches, everyone searches for answers. And they go into areas where they think need improvement, and some areas potentially might not need improvement. But what happens is everything gets going through a fine-tooth comb. It's like, if you're not wearing the right socks at training, you're in trouble. If you're not doing, you know what I mean? If you're not doing your ice baths after training, if you're winning 4 in a row or 5 in a row, that stuff gets glossed over. But under the losses, it's like everyone's under the microscope, and that's what's happening at Canterbury at the moment. You can see it, you know, the way Serraldo was in the press conference. So, you know, things need to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, can I just say, Chad, you're a current player. Is it getting harder and harder to maintain certain standards over the course of the year as you've gone through your career? So I remember as far back as 2008, 2009, 2010, the narrative around maintaining an intensity for so long in the NRL. Have you found in your career it's got harder and harder to maintain on both sides of the ball, to maintain your physicality, to maintain your body?
I wouldn't say it's been harder. What I will say is the standards or what's required, the demands of an NRL player are higher now than they've ever been with regards to training, physicality, the amount of tackling we do at training, the games, the meters per minute are faster than they've ever been. But what Sowie said before, I agree with. You know, there's weeks where you're up and down. It's very, very hard to be up every single week of the season, and that's why, you know, we look at the consistency of someone like Craig Bellamy and the Melbourne Storm over years has been ultra impressive because they've been consistent. And there's weeks where, like, teams, won't be at their best, but they still come away with a win. There's teams that won't be at their best and get pumped by 60. That's the difference between a good and a bad team. A good team wins when they don't play well. A bad team loses consistently and has bad habits. So it's hard. That's why it's the hardest competition in the world. You know what I mean? It's very hard to win.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. We'll move on now to quickly Sharks put up 54 against the Titans. Not that surprising, Sowie, but Cam Mcinnes has done his ACL. What does that do for the Sharks' finals chances?
Yeah, really sad news about Cam Mcinnes, one of the good guys of the NRL. But yeah, I think the Sharks, I don't know. For me, it's, I want to see what they do in September. We've seen them do this constantly over the last couple of years. They've beat up on those teams that are down the bottom of the ladder, but it's going to come down to, can they get themselves in a position in a big game to go on and win it? Because they've got the skill players, they've got the group that knows each other, but do they have another gear? That's going to be the big question heading into September. And when you're one of those clubs that hasn't had success in September, that's the narrative, is can you do it in September, regardless of where you finish? That was a question before the season started for the Sharks. That still remains a question.
I'd like to give a little bit of praise to Nicho Hynes. I think he's in a little bit of form, and we've been the general consensus has been quick to bag Nicho Hynes and question his position in that side. He's playing okay at the moment. In terms of what you've just been saying about defence, Chad and Sowie, I think defence was at a premium in this game too. There wasn't much of that going on.
Yeah. No, not for the Titans, and for the Sharks later on, as the Titans sort of threw the ball around. Look, for the Sharks, obviously it's bad. It's sad news about Cameron McInnes. He's their leader, their captain, leads with his actions every single week. And I think for the Sharks, they're a team that, they're a good football team. You look at their team on paper, they're a consistent team. We are with their lineup. Very rarely do they have many changes to their team. They haven't had many injuries so far this season, but they're a team that just beat themselves. If the Sharks lose, it's at their own peril. They crumble and they make errors and then they concede. And that's the thing with the Sharks. They need to prove it in September against the big teams, because they do win a lot of these games and they pump a lot of the teams below them. But when it's the big games and the tight games, more often than not, the Sharks beat themselves. And that's an improvement for them moving forward.
Yep. Up in Queensland, we had the Broncos taking out the Dolphins. I think they might be done. Lee, what did you reckon? Oh, also, shout out to Reece Walsh, probably his best game in a very long time.
So the Dolphins done, you mean?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Depends what happens this week. I mean, quite frankly, when you are worrying about who's going to make the 8 and things are dropping as opposed to the Roosters who are going up, you can probably count them out of Premiership to contention now anyway. Not that they were necessarily in the Premiership race. The takeaway that I got from this game, though, is no team in the semis will be comfortable when they're 20 points ahead of the Broncos, because they can literally just turn it round in a flash with their attacking talent in there. When Reece Walsh is on, he's on. When Ezra's on, he's on. Katoni Staggs is playing some of his better football for the year now as well. We can go on and on and on. I don't think we've ever doubted the Broncos' attack, but again, it's whether they can defend Sowie for sustained periods and win the tight ones.
Yeah, I think there'd be 4 teams that'd be very comfortable with a 20-point lead, and they're the top 4. Potentially, maybe not the Warriors, but I know that if Penrith are up 20-0 against the Broncos, it's a different story. The Dolphins have had this in their identity all year, where they've scored lots of points, but they've let points in very, very quickly. So, it was 2 weeks ago, or last week, I think they let in 64 points. Now, off the back of that, usually you roll in with a concerted effort. They started the game great, but they threw it away, the Dolphins. So, the thing with the Broncos is that I know that they won, and it's always easy to get up for the games at home, but you are what you are during the regular season. That's what we're all seeing now, is like 38-28. Yep, it's exciting for the fans. I was more concerned about the 28 they let in than the 38 they scored. I know they had some reshuffling during the week, but they're coming into games now where they're going to have to play the Melbourne Storm in a couple of weeks, potentially for a seeding game where the Melbourne Storm rests some players. But Chad, I mean, you played the Broncos this year. Like, where do you see them in terms of this premiership race and where they compare to the top teams?
Yeah, look, I still see them outside the four. I don't see them as a top four team. I still think they haven't shown the consistency that has been required this season. Now, look, I think the most interesting takeaway for me out of this game was how well Reece Walsh played. And, it was on the back of no Adam Reynolds, no Ezra Mam. So to me, that got me thinking about who is the ideal replacement for Adam Reynolds, like long term. Like, obviously, Adam Reynolds is quite a dominant half with regards to his touches and his kicking game. But Reece Walsh was able to touch the ball more times than he has previously. He had more kicks on the weekend. He was more dangerous. So, do the Broncos need to look at someone who comes in just to sort of play that service role to Reece Walsh to bring out his best? Because he was dominant on the weekend. But I think, just to answer your question, Sowie, the Broncos, I still think they're probably going to finish. I mean, I know that they can probably, if they win all their games, jag that fourth position. But I think, they're a 5 to 8 team. Still need to sort of prove their stripes in this competition.
Can you respond to rumours, Chad, that you've been looking at property in Brisbane and considering a retirement U-turn based on what you've just said? That was a selfless pitch for the job.
No, I am very happily retired in the Shire, to be honest. I've done my time in Queensland.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Shire's home for me.
It's nice.
Sowie, I'm sad that Showie's leaving the Shire, to be honest. You'll be missed, Sowie.
Not this rig down on the beach, mate.
Alrighty, so moving to the Rabbitohs and Eels. Probably not a whole lot to take away from this game, Lee, but still good to see Rabbitohs get up.
Thanks for giving me the shit game, Phoenix. I want to praise South Sydney and the master coach. All year I've been saying to South fans, your side aren't as bad as the ladder suggests and you're competing very well. Even in games where the score blew out somewhat, for the 50 minutes of games they were really strong. I remember one game in particular in Canberra where they were good for at least an hour and then it changed. And I think sides that are on the downward trend, they lose more games at the end of the year. I think about the West Tigers in years gone by. The scorelines got bigger and bigger towards the end of the year as they were varnishing the spoon. Souths have gone in the opposite direction. They've had a really good 2 weeks, so a little bit of something for the South fans to get excited about, and also it shows they've got some starch there because that was a tight game. And I'm just trying to drag on as much as I can now because you passed to me about that terrible game and what a nice stadium. Weather was lovely.
It is a nice stadium. All right, well, we'll move on then. So, Sowie, West Tigers getting over the Manly. So, a couple of things out of this one. But question here from Scott. What do you think is Tommy Turbo's best position?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? I think, all of us would love to see Tom fully fit in that fullback role, doing what he did 5, 6, 7 years ago when he won the Dally M. But unfortunately, it's going to be what's best for the team. I could hear arguments for him to be fullback. I could hear arguments for him to be at centre, but it's what you put around him as well. I mean, Chad spoke about Reece Walsh and what he needs to be, the main man at Brisbane there. So maybe they have a look at that. How's that combination going to go with Jamal Fogarty next year? Do they need a ball runner? Do they need a ball player? I think the game's gone away from ball playing fullbacks at the moment. It's sort of that support through the middle and you need that fitness. So on that argument, I'd have him in at centre. But we all want Tommy to recapture some of that form, Chad. But again, you can have people in their favourite positions, but the effort from Manly yesterday was terrible. Like that's a team with a roster that's a top 4 roster that could put pressure on the big teams if they're all playing well. They just haven't been able to get it. So to me, there's going to be some changes in the off season. Whether that's a coach or not, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, look, for me, I called this game for SEN on the radio yesterday, and obviously the first set of the game was a Tolu Kola try, and I'm thinking, geez, Manly have turned up today. There's so much to play for. Their season is on the line. They're fighting for a chance at the top 8. Here we go. And I liked Manly before the game. In daytime conditions, that Manly chance their arm. They shift the ball a lot. But yesterday, pretty much after that first try to Tolu Kola, I know they created a couple of chances, but their game just went backwards. They did not turn up. They were arguing with each other on the field. It did not look pretty. And for the Tigers, on the other hand, well, they just kept feeding off that. Chances, they were chancing their arm. Things came off for them. Adam Dewey played, I thought he was outstanding. Terrell May was great through the middle in big minutes. Talon May was another one. The Fainu brothers, I thought, were all outstanding. Sione on the edge done a great job. And the Tigers, I heard Benji Marshall talk in the press conference, that they want to win now. They're not talking about bleeding youngsters. And, Lee said about teams, conceding tries and losing at the back end of the season. Well, the Tigers want to win and finish as high as possible. And if I'm a Tigers fan, I would be really happy after what I saw yesterday and the improvement for them. This is the team that's finished last, the wooden spoon in the past 3 years. So a big result for Tigers yesterday.
In the absence of the great numbers man, Darren Parkin, I've now put on my spectacles. I'm going to come up with some numbers. Manly are now level on points with the Tigers. Their record is 9 wins, 12 losses. So we're talking about the coach. He's in his 3rd season. Also, a warning sign is things are starting to leak in the media too. If you think about the Sydney media landscape, a lot of them either live in the very posh Shire or they live on the northern beaches, and that's where... So they have conversations in coffee shops and away we go. And Manly have lost the last 4 games. 16 handling errors yesterday across 80 minutes. 45 missed tackles, and they've only scored 6 tries in the last 4 games. Tigers' 4th win from 6. Their best season since 2019, when they won 11 games, and they are now 4 points adrift of the top 8 and can still mathematically make the semis. How good was that statistical rundown?
Sowie thoughts?
Lee imitated Darren.
Yeah.
Oh, it just sounds like he gave us a pointless bunch of numbers to see what we could have just heard in 2 sentences.
I've not talked about the 1968 grand final yet. You just interrupted me.
Yeah, not yet. I like the Tigers' improved this year. I think they've been through some up and down patches, but you can see the fingerprints of what Benji's trying to do in the club there, and they actually look like they're a happy playing group. They're playing for each other. The thing with Manly is, the big question in the off season is how do you go down to Melbourne, win in Melbourne, and then lose your next 4 straight the way that they've played? Because Chad's had success down in Melbourne. When you win, if you win down in Melbourne, you come back and you should catapult themselves. They should be sitting 5th or 6th right now off the back of what they did in Melbourne, but they haven't been able to back it up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chad, I'm throwing to you because Lee got upset for me throwing to him for the shit games. But Cowboys putting up 38 against the Knights. Not a whole lot to talk about there, but what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, error central. That's what I made of it. I know the Cowboys won convincingly over the Knights. Obviously, the Knights, have their problems with injury and their roster this season, but I mean, the amount of errors in this game was insane. I don't think we've seen a game riddled with as many errors. I mean, 67% and 68% completion rates between the two sides. The Cowboys were far better and had some great performances. Obviously, Drinkwater, Tom Dearden, Jackson Purdue were standouts as well. The Cowboys, I thought, were always going to win this game. Obviously, really nice conditions up there in Townsville. It suited them, their style of play. But obviously, just errors. Both teams, unable to make the 8, and that's what I took away from the game. Phoenix just error central.
What made it better for me, I was driving home from a commitment in Toowoomba in the grassroots of Rugby League, and I turned on my app on my telephone onto 2GB, and I'm sure I could hear Jamie Golden Tonsil Soward pontificating about the game, and he and the big man said something along the lines of, "This is the worst game we've ever seen," quote unquote, after about 20 minutes of it. So I did not rush to watch the replay. Although, again, I did find something when I did read up on the game that Newcastle have lost the last 10 games in Townsville.
Yeah. 2015.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
And there's probably another coach that's probably going to be in trouble, boys, if we're honest. I mean, I call him 9 Lives O'Brien. He's probably on his 15th now.
Did you have anything else on how bad that game was, Sowie?
Not really.
Yeah, great. Alrighty, let's chat. So we have some international allegiance news coming out. Sowie, I'll throw it to you since you didn't want to contribute to the last one. Payne Haas is confirmed for Samoa.
Yeah, he certainly has, and it's a big coup for Samoa being able to get a player of Payne's quality to come into camp. You know, we understand the landscape at the moment and the discussion around origin eligibility, but I just think as a person that's coaching on the Fetu side, you know, we want our best players to represent their culture and their heritage. I think it's a huge move for the international landscape. And the other thing, in the rundown this morning, I just thought Australia, New Zealand, Tonga, Samoa, geez, it puts pressure on England at the end of the year and next year to be able to come up and remain in that top four, because if everyone's full strength right now, you'd have to put England on the outside of that top four. So I'm really excited to see what Payne can bring to the group. And see where the international game grows right now.
Golden tonsils, all we do is we play our games at home. We play every Ashes series at home, local refs. And we at least jag one win and keep the Rugby Football League alive with finances, because the third game's a decider. We've done that for 50 years. I'll be honest, I was upset when Payne switched teams. Not because I don't think he should.
He hasn't switched teams. He's representing the heritage within his family. I want to get that narrative out of everyone's mouth. He hasn't switched teams. Okay, he hasn't gone from the Broncos to the Titans and just said, I'm going to do this. He's representing part of his heritage for his family. Now, everyone talks all this shit about how passionate they are about their family. Well, when someone else does it, one of the top-line players, now we all want to talk about he's switching teams. No, he's representing his heritage and his family.
He switched from Australia to Samoa.
Well,
last time I checked, they're two different teams.
Which he represented Samoa first.
Well, he switched twice then. Again. So he switched again. So anyway, so I was upset because I know if England do happen to win a test or two tests this October, it will be all about how...
Which won't happen.
Oh, hello. It'll all be about how Australia was so weakened. So again, and I mean, because one of the problems with you Aussies, because I can speak with quite a lot of experience of this, you are quite arrogant when it comes to playing against the English as a group, and you do take it very easily. And I do understand why you are arrogant, but as a Brit myself, and still got plenty of Brit and English in me, I think there's nothing that fires us up more. And like I said, the referees are quite interesting too. Because I sit right in the middle because I've been in Australia so long. I watch some of the games where the World Club Challenge has been in England and Tonga have played in New Zealand and Samoa. And I've thought, and there's been players that I know more players in the Samoa team and Tonga team and Australia side. And I'm thinking, oh, this referee's a bit biased towards the Australian or the Tonga or the Samoa side. So, look, it's going to be a really tough tour, and every player that decides to not play for Australia, I'll say that just so Soward doesn't bite my head off again, it's going to add more fuel to the English fire. And the worst thing you can ever do, Chad, is write an Englishman off.
Yeah, like I sit here and I like what Tino's done. Payne Haas has done. I'm a fan. He's obviously got Samoan heritage, you know, and to have that chance to go and play for Samoa and represent his family, I'm a big fan of it. I think it's only going to strengthen our international game, which from the moment Jason Taumalolo made that decision years ago to switch his allegiance from New Zealand to Tonga, that's a legacy that he's changed for this international game, which is only going to get stronger and stronger. So what we're going to see now is like Australia is guaranteed to win, or has been, like they just win everything. And now these other nations are now coming up, and the international game is going to get strength to strength. What I do think is, like, if we had an Australia A team, you know what I mean, years ago, we probably beat England, to be honest. We now have a team where we've got other nations who are just as competitive, playing with some of the best players on the field in the competition. So I'm a fan of it. I think it's only going to strengthen the international game, and I'm looking forward to the Ashes series. but also the Tri-Nations between the other three nations as well.
Do you want to come on a tour, Chad? I'm running a tour.
Yeah, let's do it.
The way that, mind you, the amount of people that are switching jerseys, you might get a game too while you're there.
Let me just check my nationality, my heritage. I could have played for the Kiwis. Actually, I got
There you
Kiwi
go.
heritage, and I'm a true blue Aussie. Sowie's Italian, actually.
Oh,
Yeah. Thanks. What I will say is, like, if it's Payne, Tino, the Hammer, that switch allegiances and play for that's three players. Like, anyone would think that we haven't got three other players that can fill in that spot. Like, Brad, without even thinking about it, Bradman Best could play left centre. Lindsay Collins could start up front. You've got Lindsay Smith out at Penrith. You've got Isaiah Yeo. Like, we're not talking about taking the half the side. We're talking about three players. So, yeah, I think it's been overblown, the amount of attention it's gotten in terms of, they're representing their heritage.
It's happened historically, though, too, Sowie. So there's been players that have played for Samoa and Tonga for years. So the measure is origin. If you look at origin and then how many players qualify for Australia, and that's why I think there's so much narrative around whether it should be, you should not be allowed to play origin, but that's another conversation.
But if you're the best, you're the best.
Yeah.
Whether you're Samoan, New South Welshman, born in Burke, you're the best, you're the best.
In terms of
in origin.
All
Talk
jokes
about
aside,
historically, England haven't won the Ashes for 50 years. That's historic.
all jokes aside, where Australia probably lack a little bit of firepower when all these changes have happened, particularly if Tino Gold is in the front row. Have a look at that when you've got 5 minutes, Howie. Have a look.
I've got 5 minutes
and go through your.
I think Lindsay Smith, Lindsay Collins, Ruben Cotter, Isaiah Yeo. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, all right.
And you're picking half the squad from the NRL
I might
anyway.
have a little wager with you.
You're picking half the squad from the NRL.
Oh, England are picking half the squad from the NRL too.
So this is what I was talking about, Chad. These two.
I love to see it. I've got my popcorn
I'm going to fire up
awesome.
all my fellow English people. I'm going to get this clip and I'm going to cut it and just repeat it on my socials constantly.
Keep the receipts. Keep the receipts.
Yeah,
It's going to be a whitewash, Lee. 3-0. 3-0.
No, let's have a wager.
Even with your biased referees over there.
England will win a test. England will win a test. And not only that, we'll win the cricket one and all. Let's go all in.
All right, I think we're going to have to bring this back to the domestic league. So, Chad, last thing on some player movements. So, Tino has been rumoured. We did a video about building the Perth Bears spine a couple of weeks ago. Some of that has changed, but Tino's been rumoured he's linked to Bears. He's also linked to Dragons and Bulldogs. But in that vein, should the Titans be fighting to keep him as much as they can, given their own salary cap issues?
100% they should be doing everything they can to keep Tino. I mean, it's probably not about money at this stage. Tino's probably on an absolute mozza earning. It's more about, is he happy? What's the club got around him to make him want to stay, for him to feel that they can actually win? Tino seems like he's frustrated at the direction of the club and not winning games. So that's the reason as to why he would leave. And that's the biggest thing the Titans need to face. They need to show him that they have a roster. They're attracting guys so they can win now. And if Tino doesn't feel like that, he will leave. It's as simple as that. It's not about money. You ask Tino, I guarantee you, regardless of whichever team he's playing at, he'll get paid whatever he wants to get paid. But the Titans need to show him. They can't just keep telling him. It's like, hey, we need to see some change, because the Titans have been the Titans for the last couple of years, and Tino's probably been, the forefront of that and copped it all on the chin. He's worn the whole thing on himself. So I don't blame him if he wants to leave. And go and try and win somewhere else.
Jamie, my dear friend, have you ever known a prop to have such an impact on the side, in the sense that when he comes off the field, the team leak 3 tries straight away? Have you ever known somebody to have that much of an influence on the side? There's been many games this year when he's been on the field, they've been a solid team to compete against. He comes off the field and they all of a sudden leak 2 or 3 tries.
Yeah, I think you have players within your side that uphold the standards, and Tino certainly does that. What I would say off the back of Chad's point is, the whole organisation needs to sit down and pick a direction on where they're going to go. Are they going to be a recruitment club or are they going to be a development club? Because they're neither at the moment, which is putting pressure on both sides of the business. And when you have someone of the calibre of Tino, and some of their other players that are on big money, there has to be a standard there. So they need to work out the direction, get Tino involved in some of those discussions. Having 3 fullbacks isn't going to work going into next year. They need to go into the trade market and try and find a way to get some of the stuff that they need to be able to be consistent. The other part is that there's so much talk around the coach. It's like you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. I think the longer it goes, I just think they need a young coach up there. I've seen experienced coaches go up there that haven't done it. I think a young coach getting an opportunity to go up there and, first timer, and people say, well, I just think you've got to start from scratch and at least show Tino that the way forward has a plan. Like Jason Riles and Parramatta. Like no one would question Jason Riles and what Parramatta have done this year. They've got the plan. They've stuck solid to it. Yes, they've played games where they've won. Yes, they've played games where they've been not so great. So I think they need a plan and they need it fast.
Soward, you're a coach. You're moving house. Can you confirm any rumours that you've been looking for property in Rabina, Gold Coast, Surfers?
Happy
young
with
coach.
The Pac Champs. Happy with the Pac Champs 2 weeks. One in New Zealand, one in Australia, mate.
You've got to ask the question, haven't you, Chad?
Well, he's trying to get a scoop. All right. Okay, let's wrap it up with a round 25 preview. So we'll go around the table. Some absolutely banging games. Friday night is looking stacked. What are you looking forward to, Lee?
There's a few. Penrith, Canberra, Storm Dogs. That's in one night, isn't it?
Yeah.
Manly Dolphins is going to be a big game because one of those sides needs to win. Both of those sides need to win, so one of them will be absolutely finished after that game. And then the other one is Tigers and Cowboys, because whoever wins that will be on the fringes of the 8 and will have something to play for in the last few weeks. None of them, I don't think, those last 4 teams aren't going to make the 8 probably, but it just gives them hope and gives their fans hope.
Sowie?
There's so much extra salad on his sandwich. It's not required. There's 2 games for me this week.
He's grumpy, isn't it? There's me trying to bump the games up and get more people listening to his radio show, and then he's that was rubbish.
Friday night, there's 3 games. Friday night this week, obviously the top 4 teams who we think are the 4 favourites play each other this weekend, and then there's a watch on the Roosters because they need to win to keep that the Dolphins at bay. But I just think Friday night, that's a perfect argument, Chad, for a flex schedule. We can't be having a 6 o'clock Friday game. One of these games should have been bumped to 7:30 Saturday night, so we've got the best teams playing in the proper time slots.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no doubt. I agree with the boys. Friday night's going to have some massive ramifications. It's a big week for the Bulldogs, to be honest. They need to bounce back after their performance on the weekend. And obviously, that game at 4 Pines Park, Manly versus the Dolphins. It's Daly Cherry Evans' 350th game for Manly. It's a big night for them. Obviously, the Dolphins season hanging by a thread, and Manly, want to bounce back after a disappointing performance. But this week, after this weekend, I feel like, we're going to get that little step closer about finding exactly, how we're going to finish up with the top 8 at the end of the season.
Yep, absolutely cracking. All right, we'll wrap up. And Lee, what have you got going on?
What have I got going on? So busy I couldn't be on last week. There's a great book there. Chad's captain did the foreword for that. I would like to encourage everybody to go to rugbyleaguecoach.com.au/coach mentor. I'd spent a lot of work on that page last week, a lot of time on that page last week, so everyone go and look at that this week. Thank you very much.
Love it. Sowie, what do you got going on, mate?
I'm doing my podcast with Guru, Take the 2, every single Wednesday, but I not shout out my little mate, the Chad Townsend show. Get on and have a look at it. He's doing some wonderful things. I love the way that he presents his opinion without seeming like he's trying to protect himself, still being in the playing world, which is really, really hard. So, yeah, if you can't find me on my podcast, go and watch Chad's.
Yeah, so Chad, you need to do another plug for your own pod. It's a pretty good one there.
I appreciate the plugs, Zowie, but yeah, same thing. Head over to YouTube, search Chad Townsend, you see all my content there, videos, vlogs, podcasts, love it all. The greatest game of all. There's nothing better than talking footy with the boys. So, yeah, thanks for having me today, and yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate your time, fellas. And also, Chad, we'll have some stuff in the works on the Zero Tackle channel as well. But yeah, great chat. Thanks for your time again, and we'll see you next week.